Thank you.
Uncle Brock, let's go.
It is always a pleasure to rise on behalf of the good people of Brantford Brant. But here we are, another day, yet another Liberal scandal. This time, a member for Edmonton Centre, a cabinet minister, who finds himself embroiled in yet another scandal that seems to be growing legs, Mr. Speaker. And what a legacy for this Prime Minister and members of his government to take with them when they are defeated in the next general election. A legacy of being the most corrupt, the most unethical government Canada has ever seen. But you know, this is not what the Prime Minister promised Canadians. In 2015, he talked about sunny ways. Talked quite a bit about sunny ways. And in fact, followed that up with an open letter to Canadians dated November the 4th, 2015. And I want to highlight certain passages. Canadians need to have faith in their government's honesty and willingness to listen. That is why we committed to set a higher bar for openness and transparency in Ottawa. But in order for you to trust your government, you need a government that will trust you. When we make a mistake, as all governments do, it is important that we acknowledge that mistake and we learn from it. We know that you do not expect us to be perfect, but you expect us to work tirelessly and to be honest, open, and sincere in our efforts to serve the public interest. He finalized the letter by saying this, Mr. Speaker: I am committed to leading an open, honest government that is accountable to Canadians, lives up to the highest ethical standards, brings our country together, and applies the utmost care and prudence in the handling of public funds. What an absolute joke, let alone disgrace to the Canadians who voted him into power into 2015. Because we've seen nothing but an open, honest, ethical government. And just to name a few of the scandals that we have discussed over the last 9 years, we all remember Gropegate. We remember Elbowgate. We remember blackface, with the Prime Minister not even remember how many times he wore blackface.
Oh my God.
We all remember the disgraceful comment to an Indigenous proud woman at a fundraiser: thank you for your donation. We remember the experience it differently.
Point of order to the Honourable Member for Timmins James Bay.
Yeah, I think he just misrepresented. The disgraceful comment was the leader of the Conservatives who said Indigenous people needed to learn how to work hard.
That's we're following the debate again. So I appreciate.
Shut it down.
Let's stick to the points of order for this House. The Honourable Member for
Nothing to say about the blackface, eh?
disrupting all the time.
So where I was interrupted with not a point of order but debate was I was talking about
Oh my goodness.
differently by our Prime Minister. We of course know the SNC scandal. We know the WE scandal, the ArriveCan scandal, which continues to be debated in committee and in this House, the Green Slush Fund scandal that is approaching $1 billion of wasteful taxpayer dollars. We remember foreign interference that is still a problem with our democracy. We remember Billionaires Row condo scandal. And now, Mr. Speaker, we have the other Brandy scandal. For the past 9 years, this Prime Minister has led the most ethically compromised government in Canadian history. It took him more than a year of foot-dragging to appoint an ethics commissioner, probably because without one, he and his government and his backbench wouldn't be investigated for bad, unethical behavior.
Holy smokes.
From his frequent taxpayer-funded vacations, his protection of SNC Lavalin, granting a government contract to a company that gave money to his family members, handing out billions of dollars to well-connected Liberal insiders and consultants, the Prime Minister has a long track record of using government to benefit himself and his friends, and Liberal MPs are learning from the best. The Trudeau government has been slapped with 5 ethical violations.
The Honourable, you can't use the name Trudeau.
Yes, thank you for that.
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, has been
Sorry.
slapped with 5 ethical violations, the most in Canadian history. Time after time, this Prime Minister has shown total contempt for our ethic laws. He himself has been the subject of 3 ethics investigations and was found guilty of breaking those laws twice. This Liberal government allows the culture of law-breaking to persist as 6 Liberals have been found guilty of breaking ethics laws. Several ministers in the Prime Minister's government, as well as the Prime Minister himself, found guilty in violation of numerous laws. In fact, the Prime Minister, as I indicated, has been found guilty on 2 occasions. The first was for accepting a 2016 vacation on the Aga Khan's private island while the Aga Khan was lobbying the government. The second was for improperly pressuring the Attorney General during the SNC-Lavalin scandal to interfere in a prosecution. Similarly, the former finance minister breached ethics laws by failing to disclose ownership of a French villa held in a corporation and for overseeing federal dealings with We Charity, despite his family's financial ties to the organization. The former fisheries minister also violated conflict of interest rules by awarding a lucrative Arctic surf clam contract to a company linked to his wife's cousin. And additionally, the Minister of Small Business was found guilty of violating ethics laws for awarding a contract to a firm co-owned by her friend Amanda Alvaro. These cases, Mr. Speaker, underscore persistent issues of ethical lapses within this government. After 9 years, it is now the member for Edmonton Centre, the employment minister, who is caught yet in another ethics scandal. While serving as minister, just by way of background, Mr. Speaker, he co-owned GHI, Global Health Initiative, Imports, a company that secured questionable government contracts. Despite claiming to step away from the business, evidence leads to his continued involvement, ultimately violating ethics rules. His former business partner, Stephen Anderson, is now facing fraud charges, raising further questions about the misuse of taxpayer dollars. This minister has also faced criticism for false claims about his Indigenous heritage, which the government and he had to retract. This, combined with his ties to a lobbyist who secured $110 million in federal contracts and his company's receipt of $8 million in contracts, shows a pattern of misconduct. Canadians, Mr. Speaker, deserve accountability, but this Liberal government continues to protect its own instead of delivering solid, ethical leadership that Canadians expect. Before I get into the crux of the speech, I want to share for those listening that the conflict of interest requires cabinet ministers to divest their controlled interests either by selling them or placing them in a blind trust within 100 days of their appointment. It also forbids them from having any management or control over the trust assets. A minister would then be found breaking the law if he was found to have either managed or controlled the trust assets or the day-to-day business of the company itself. And I'll get into that later on in my speech and how it bodes very poorly for the Minister of Employment. So how does this all start? The mysterious Randy texts are at the heart of the probe in the Employment Minister's shady business dealings. A year after he joined the federal cabinet, revelations came about questioning about his involvement with GHI. When appearing at the Ethics Committee, the minister repeatedly denied that he was the Randy in question and stated that he never had any operational role in the company that he co-founded since his re-election in 2021, even though he still owns half of the shares in a number company that he in fact disclosed to the commissioner. The first set of text messages obtained by Global News showed that Stephen Anderson, the co-founder of GHI, transferred an urgent message from a certain Randy to a Melvini Gwawi, principal of a PPE company in California, to send a wire transfer of $500,000 to secure a large shipment of nitrile gloves. The quote reads, and the text reads, "Additionally, Anderson, it takes 10 seconds to complete a transfer. I am telling you, we are not allocating like this. Please reach out and see what the reason is now. You assured me this morning that this was done first thing and allowed you to hold the stock today. It's midday and nothing is completed," reads the text. The message ends by telling Anderson to be ready in 15 minutes for a partner call. Anderson followed up with Gowie 30 minutes later, telling her that he spoke with Randy and other GHI employees who agreed to wait a little bit longer for the wire transfer. Those exchanges, Mr. Speaker, were dated September 8, 2022, which is almost a year after the minister was first sworn in Cabinet as Associate Minister of Finance. I see I've got 5 seconds left, so I will wrap up right there before I move into a second area. Thank you.
Hey, yo! Dude,
9 minutes.
you don't hear very often politicians still bringing up the fact that Justin Trudeau did blackface. So kudos to Brock. Let's get some W's in the chat, and let's get ready for today, because this is off to one crazy start, folks. Holy smokes.